So why is the hybrid model gaining popularity? Well, allowing employees to work this way allows for reduced need for office space and parking. It creates better space for social distancing and provides employees with an opportunity for a better work-life balance, while still allowing for some in-person collaboration and team activity. Now, as we enter nearly a year and a half into this pandemic, companies are beginning to define what they want their workplace to be long-term. So hybrid has become an option for many, with a variety of models evolving. Some organizations are embracing employees working primarily from home, asking them to come into offices or shared spaces only when in-office meetings are needed. This is really similar to 100% remote work, but consideration does have to go into what those in-person meetings look like. One common trend we've seen is that people have moved away from metro areas to enjoy lower costs of living, maybe a better quality of life, or to be near family. Now they have to consider travel costs for in-person meetings since it will involve such a large percentage of staff now not being local. So other companies plan in-office team days where some departments or even the full workforce has to be in the office. This really helps support the collaboration and bonding that happens when we all happen to be in the same place. Many organizations have also elected to move to a model with more flex days than the previous standard 1 day per week being remote. The options are really truly endless, but what we are seeing the most common is 3 days in office and 2 days remote. Finally, we see organizations with roles that require less face-to-face collaboration to allow in-office days to be chosen by the employee. Keep in mind, this can be a big benefit for the employee, but may require some planning and focus from the manager. So since we're talking about recruiting today, we want to mention that when we're moving to hybrid models, we still have to keep in mind that candidate experience will remain a top priority. Once an organization has determined the scope and design of the model they've selected, you need to have a hybrid recruiting strategy in place. One of the most obvious considerations becomes what the expectation will be for in-person presence. This determines how far you can recruit with regards to geography when it comes to candidate consideration. You need to disqualify candidates in a thoughtful way. Always be sure to let the candidate know you appreciated them applying, but you'll be moving forward with candidates local to your office location. Never burn a bridge by not responding because this could really damage your employer brand. Finally, set expectations before the interview. I really recommend you clarify with candidates during an initial phone screen exactly what your hybrid workplace looks like and confirm the candidate agrees to and can work with this arrangement. This confirmation needs to happen early in the hiring process out of respect for the candidates and your hiring team's time. Recruiting for the hybrid workplace may bring a few challenges. You may find that you're getting an increase in applications. For some roles, this can be a good thing, but you need to set aside more time and resources to vet and communicate with candidates. Better yet, use a tool to filter applicants so you can focus on quality over quantity. Secondly, if you're recruiting nationwide, you are recruiting in multiple time zones. For roles like sales and customer service, this can actually be a benefit because you can increase your service hours. But for some highly collaborative type roles, such as some marketing or development roles, it can slow down work progress. It's also potentially a challenge to manage employees over multiple time zones. Hybrid models, especially those with some 100% remote roles, allow you to enter new markets to recruit. Initially, that can sound really attractive, but it will bring some challenges that should be thought through in advance. Are you going to set the salary based on your company location and pay the same rate regardless of where the employee lives? Do you have the resources and the budget to benchmark based on location for every hire? Finally, if you're employing in multiple states, you need to comply with employment law changes by state. For example, Colorado recently enacted a law that states your salary must be in your job post. So any remote role nationwide needs to clearly state salary now. Additionally, multi-state employment carries workers' comp considerations you'll need to work with your broker on. And from an accounting perspective, tax withholding needs set up. Make sure you have the time and resources to keep your organization fully compliant when entering any new state. So we are in unprecedented times regarding most industries finding it a struggle to find talent. Remote work allows us a much larger talent pool access. Many people also have reinvented their lives and changed how they work, or in many cases, left the workforce altogether. The job market is red hot for this reason. Being remote allows us to tap into job seekers interested in remote work. Being an employer who offers remote work options or some type of attractive flexibility definitely opens up the quality and quantity of interested job candidates. You can also expand your diversity initiatives since you're not limiting yourself to the area immediately surrounding your location of business. Keep in mind, a hybrid environment may be new to the new hire. Communication is key. Be sure you define required in-office days, particularly if your model offers a good bit of flexibility. It would be unfair to an employee to be reprimanded for the amount of time they work remote if the manager didn't set in-office expectations in advance. It may be necessary to also discuss hours of operation to avoid casual start-stop times if that doesn't fit your structure. So be clear about your work expectations. Also, communicate how to use flex time versus PTO. You should be sure your new hire understands your organizational culture regarding when they can use flex time for things like doctor appointments or a meeting at their child's school, or when you would expect PTO to be used. Let those joining your organization know what you'll be looking at as far as performance standards from remote workers by discussing how their performance is going to be measured, and plan on more time to communicate on a format such as Zoom or Teams or the like. Finally, if your company has made the leap to multiple time zones, be sure you're explaining how teams will work in those multiple time zones. Take a look at your historical structure and consider shifting things like all hands meetings that start at 9 a.m. Eastern to more of a midday time, so your West Coast staff isn't always starting work at 6 a.m. Keep in mind, one of the things likely to come up when you're recruiting is additional costs employees will face for things like Wi-Fi, cell. Prospective employees will want to know how your organization handles that, even if they're too timid to ask. Plan ahead and have something you can give them in writing, perhaps outlined with other company benefits. It's wise to let them know what equipment the company will provide and what they'll be expected to provide for themselves. So work with HR to review your performance management programs and make sure they're promoting fairness in performance assessment. Statistics show that people we see face-to-face often leave a better impression. So our systems need to be designed to rule out that bias, so remote workers have the same salary increase, promotion opportunities, et cetera. If you have a blended or 100% remote workforce, communication simply must evolve. You may move all meetings to video format. There are so many good tools out there like Teams and SharePoint you can add to your resources if you haven't already. Managers are likely going to need management training for a hybrid workforce. So work with HR on that and see what it looks like to your organization. You also might consider an informal confidential survey to see where your strengths are and where you have opportunities for managers to improve. Special concerns occur with younger workers newer to the workforce or those new to your organization. We're seeing employers move to training in video format with frequent check-ins by managers, along with like a workplace buddy who can help the new employee with everything from general questions to workplace culture acclimation. And finally, what does inclusion look like? Perhaps our diversity and inclusion plans were created pre-pandemic and need a good solid review to make sure we're considering all aspects of the work experience. As we're moving towards hiring, we want to prepare our hybrid office with specific interview questions. There are some important questions we need to add to the interview process that were touched on earlier, but should be clarified so we understand that the person's access and ability to work remotely is going to be assessed as well. Conduct video interviews so you can see how the person functions in their environment. Does it appear there's a lot of background activity and other people in the home? Or perhaps they're clearly in a private space. Remember, you're assessing, however, not asking. It's also important to note that while it's fine to ask if the person can, for example, be in an environment where they can take client calls without interruption all day, it wouldn't be okay to ask if there's children in the home. It's also always wise to use behavioral style interviews, and these can be easily tailored to determine how a person can function remotely. In a hybrid situation, candidates may have some questions about where they'll be sitting on days they are in the office. Will they have a dedicated office or desk? What are the rules related to masks, social distancing? Finally, are you requiring vaccinations in or on-site testing? It's important to have all this thought through because there's still a wide variety of opinions. So showing the company has plans should meet with less resistance.